YouTube, with the Toronto Raptors having kind of a transition year in 2024, trading their best two players in OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. All things considered, you actually get a fantastic return with some players coming back, including young and up-and-coming players like Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, who we're going to talk about in this video. And, I've made the case previously that I think the Raptors have one of the brightest futures in the Eastern Conference, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, considering they're absolutely stacked with young pieces that are going to be high-ceiling players in the future. And like I said, the Toronto Raptors, you trade Pascal Siakam, you trade OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet leaves in free agency the year prior, and now all of a sudden you're building around your potential superstar Scottie Barnes, who had a breakout season last year. And I actually think that the Toronto Raptors are probably going to be a play-in team next season, and that is impressive considering how young and long-term thinking this team actually is. So much like the thunderstorm outside my house right now, it is raining, but raining young talent in Toronto. That's enough jokes out of me. That was horrendous. This is a Toronto Raptors deep dive, folks. We're going to be diving into their offseason, every single move they've made. That includes trades, draft, free agency, re-signings, additions, departures, the whole 9 yards, and going through detail by detail. We're also going to be doing a massive roster inventory deep dive after we cover the offseason. So, make sure you guys stick around. Raptors fans, how are we feeling about this team? I think you have, again, one of the brightest futures in the entire Eastern Conference, and I think you're going to start to see signs of that next season. There is so much young, versatile talent on this roster, just the way Masai Ujiri likes it. I actually think the Raptors are poised for a play-in spot in the upcoming 2025 season. Let's talk about everything to do with the Raptors right now in this deep dive video, folks. Let's get right into it. So as I mentioned, we're going to start with the offseason. And actually, before we get into the draft, we're going to be covering, as I mentioned, re-signings, departures, and additions. Okay, so, there's a lot to get through in this offseason. And you start with securing your future. And that includes giving your franchise player, Scottie Barnes, a 5-year extension. We're going to talk about all the players in great detail, in the roster deep dive. But just for Scottie Barnes, I will say this quickly. This is a all-NBA caliber player. And I think next season, he is going to be, assuming the Raptors, win closer to 40 games or 45 games or so. I think they're closer to 40. Assuming that's the case, Scottie Barnes will be in contention for an all-NBA third team. He is one of the better two-way players already in the league, and he's still not even played his best basketball yet. I cannot say enough good things about their decision to build around Scottie Barnes so far throughout the young career that he's had, even winning Rookie of the Year. Not even that, basically breaking out to stardom last season. So that's only going to get better, by the way. You also give a 5-year, $175 million extension to Immanuel Quickley, who IQ you acquired in the OG Anunoby trade to the Knicks. And I gotta say, man, I've talked about this, and I don't think enough people are. Immanuel Quickley, for number one, looked like a totally different player in the most positive way last season with the Raptors than he looked like with New York. In New York, he was an off-the-bench six-man type of scorer, okay? He was actually a finalist for the Six-Man of the Year award in the 2022-2023 season, I believe. And he was known in New York as kind of a, pesty on-ball defender, good spark plug scorer, and things like that off the bench. And I gotta be honest, this is a potential star guard, lead guard of the future for this team. I mean, the amount of growth that he showed with the Raptors in that increased opportunity is actually something I didn't expect, but he totally flipped the script on his career narrative big time last season. Again, showing that $175 million 5 years is absolutely warranted. And again, I think this is your guard of the future you build with. Still super young, and we'll get into Quickley later because I do want to talk about him a lot, but people have criticized this contract. Get out of here, man. That is absolutely ridiculous. He deserves every penny of this. And if you actually, knew about his season last year with the Raptors and, since that trade, his time with the Raptors, you would know just how deserving of that contract he is and actually how much of a W that contract is for the Raptors and their future. You also re-signed Garrett Temple on a 1-year deal. I think this is a good move for veteran leadership, helping guys like Immanuel Quickley develop. So, just W signing there. So those are some big re-signings. You really locked down two of the future core members of this team, Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley. Scottie Barnes being the franchise player. We don't give enough credit to teams that actually are able to secure their best players, and I'm gonna attempt to do that because people think it's boring. There's nothing boring about retaining your star players. Okay, that is actually how teams win in this league for a long period of time. And not only is it important, it is actually essential to maintaining a winning status in the league. For the additions category, you agree to a deal with Bruno Fernando of the Atlanta Hawks. And I think this is a good move. I think Bruno Fernando can provide, some solid ability from the front court as a depth piece. Again, we'll get into the, center rotations and all that stuff later, but pretty good deal for Bruno Fernando, I'd say. You also acquired Davion Mitchell via the Sacramento Kings trade, where you traded away Jalen McDaniels for Davion Mitchell, Sasha Vesenkov, and the rights to Jamal Shead, who is one of your second round picks. I actually love this trade for both sides, and that's great value for Toronto if you're really being honest, because that's a pretty good haul. I know you actually waived Sasha Vesenkov, who is a shooter, but just being able to get Davion Mitchell, who is a young up and coming defensive player, this is a guy that has limited size, right? He is pretty small for a point guard, but he actually has on-ball pest capabilities. Think of TJ McConnell, on-ball pest, right? These smaller guys, Patrick Beverly, right? Jose Alvarado, these kind of guys. That's kind of what I see Davion Mitchell's role is as a defender. He still is improving as an offensive player and certainly has room to grow there. But, I think just for the upside alone, and maybe McDaniels wasn't in your future plans, I think that's a great move for Toronto, and acquiring Jamal Shead for the second round pick. We'll get into the draft picks later, but just a great move, I think, for that trade. So yeah, Bruno Fernando, Davion Mitchell, those are the additions. For the departures, you waive Muhammad Goye, you trade Jalen McDaniels, as I mentioned, and one of the big ones, Gary Trent Jr. departs in free agency on a deal with the Bucks, a 1-year deal. You have a lot of young players in the guard rotation that you want to give minutes to. You're not necessarily looking to contend this season, for a title, okay? I don't think that's necessarily what you're trying to do. Obviously I do think this team is somewhere around the 9 or 10 seed as a play-in team, but Gary Trent Jr. just basically doesn't fit the timeline of the team, and I think, moving on in that regard to give minutes to your younger players is a big, good deal for them. I know you get nothing for him, but that is beside the point. I actually like the move. So, and then, as I mentioned, Sasha Vesenkov, acquired in the Jalen McDaniels trade, was officially waived after the trade. So these are actually really big time moves, a lot of them, especially securing guys like Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley, long-term 5-year deals, big ones, right? This is ensuring trust and confidence in these players that they are part of your young core. The money speaks for itself. You are building around Scottie Barnes and you are building around Immanuel Quickley, and I think it is absolutely warranted, both of those deals, considering the value they displayed last season on your team. Again, people have words and criticism for the Immanuel Quickley contract. How's a role player getting $175 million? Listen, he's not a role player, and he's not gonna be a role player on this team. He is a piece of this core, and if you look at his numbers last season, since he got to Toronto, this is a lead guard caliber player to build with. So I love the moves. And a lot of people make it out to be like, oh, the additions, Bruno Fernando, Davion Mitchell, are they really that much better next season in 2025? What a lot of people don't account for with rebuilding teams, and I wouldn't say the Toronto Raptors are necessarily a long-term rebuild team. They're kind of like a couple pieces and maybe a season away from putting it all together. Maybe you go out and try to acquire a big-time guy next season or the season after that. The big thing that people don't think about with these teams when they just look at the additions, they didn't really get anyone, right? That's not really the way to look at it, in my opinion, because basically when you're in a situation like the Toronto Raptors are in, your biggest priority is developing your players. So you're basically hoping, and I think it's obvious that this can happen with the Raptors, as we've seen, that these guys just get a year better next season. These are young players that have extremely high upside, and people don't, I guess, consider the improvement category in terms of like these young players getting a year developed and a year more polished. They only think of like the on paper additions player wise. Okay, not exactly the right way to look at it. I think it is a super underrated thing for improvement. If we look at the Orlando Magic last season, we look at the Oklahoma City Thunder last season, your young players and your young core getting a year better and a year more chemistry, get a year better in that regard. You get another year with your head coach. These are kind of things that you see in teams like the Orlando Magic and OKC Thunder that propelled them to a high seed last season in the playoffs. That's how you really improve as a young core. It's not by adding big time splash free agents. Okay, so that is the improvement for a young team that you look for. It's not necessarily going to be a free agent or trade addition. It might be boring to some people, but it's necessary. What if the Boston Celtics got impatient and just traded away Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum when they lost in the conference finals? You wait for these guys to develop. I think the improvement is big, having them play together a lot more, because we haven't seen RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes, and Immanuel Quickley play together for a full season. That's kind of my piece on that. But let's get into the 2024 NBA draft for the Toronto Raptors. I'd grade their offseason A+ by securing 2 members of your core long term. Let's get into the draft. So the Toronto Raptors had the 19th pick and the 31st pick going into the draft, okay? And they would keep both of them and select players with both of them, and they would trade for 2 extras after those spots. The first pick being Jakob Poeltl out of Baylor University. Is the University of Baylor? I think it's Baylor University. Sorry, I'm not a college guy. If Baylor fans are watching, I do apologize. I don't mean any disrespect, but Jakob Poeltl is a guy I like out of this draft. I think he has some of the most competitive and dog kind of mentality of anyone in this draft, and he just feels like a Raptor if you watch him play. The criticisms of Jakob Poeltl and why he didn't go higher in the draft is because of his athleticism. It's not necessarily, top tier, but the thing I love about Walter, number one, is his competitiveness. He might not be the best athlete or have the best tools to lock down a great player on the defensive end, but for one, the Raptors don't really need that in the NBA with guys like Scottie Barnes on the roster. And the second thing is his three-point shooting. The percentage wasn't exactly elite last season, but he did take a lot of attempts, and a lot of these threes that Jakob Poeltl is taking is difficult threes. So add a guy that is an absolute competitor dog who wants to win, and he will give you everything he has on the floor every night, and he provides a lot of solid shooting upside for the future, and he can handle the ball pretty well. He's a two guard, but I like Jakob Poeltl for those reasons. I think he's going to be a great shooter in the league, and I think he's going to add a ton of edge to this team as far as a competitor. Great pick at 19. A lot of people had him going higher, so I think it's a good pick. With the 31st pick, you select Jonathan Mogbo. Mogbo is a, backup center type of player. Apparently he is undersized. Again, I'm not a draft expert. I just displayed my lack of college information that I know, but, I'm reading what a lot of people smarter than me are writing. And, one of the things is about Jonathan Mogbo is that he's a center, but he's a little bit undersized, but he does have a good length to him. So, the wingspan is good. So that's, if you're short for the position, it's not the end of the world if you have great length, primarily on the defensive end. And he also has a good frame and strength to him. So that's another positive if you're a undersized player for your position. What people like from what I'm seeing about Mogbo is his passing upside, which I think is a, thing that the Raptors bigs all kind of have now. You have Kelly Olynyk, you have Jakob Poeltl. These guys are good passers, versatile type of passers, and apparently has some ball handling potential, which is an interesting development for the Raptors front court. So the passing and, ball handling upside is intriguing. That's something you got to look out for. Makes him a little bit more dynamic offensively. Defensive upside is there from what I'm seeing. And, apparently he has the ability, hopefully in the future to shoot a jump shot, mid-range. So I like this player. I think you take a swing on a guy that has some really intriguing, I guess, different kind of upside ability-wise to some of your centers now, and a lot of the centers in the league, can't really handle the ball or pass very well. So if that is truly his best suit, I love taking a swing on that guy at 31. I think, again, those are rare abilities if he can develop them consistently in the NBA for a center. The number 45 pick that you traded for in the Davion Mitchell, Jalen McDaniels trade ended up being Jamal Shead, as we talked about. And again, I'm reading this stuff, so if I'm wrong, Raptors fan, please correct me, because I do want to get this stuff right, and I don't want to, just pretend I know everything. I really don't. I'm just reading what other people are saying that I kind of trust. So if I am wrong about it, though, please let me know. Shead's, apparently his biggest strength, he is basically a point guard, but his defensive upside is really good. It looks like the Raptors are really bulking up on perimeter defense from the guard rotation, and that is evident with getting a guy like Davion Mitchell, and I think Immanuel Quickley is a solid defender as well. But Shead is a 6-foot guard, which kind of begs the question, like, maybe they're trying to take a shot on Shead and then also Davion Mitchell, see which one works out better, and then hopefully out of one of those two guys you could get a solid type of skill set and on-ball pest that you're looking for. Hopefully one of those guys will develop into that for you. Maybe that's the line of thinking from Masai, but we'll have to see. It says that he's good at navigating screens and forcing turnovers, passing lanes, active hands, good playmaker. I like the pick. I like that strategy from Masai. If you're gonna put these two guys on the same team, Mitchell and Shead, see which one ends up being the guy you like. Similar skill sets, similar profiles. It's clear that that's the type of skill set you're looking for in a backup guard. I think having these two guys, compete against each other for that role is going to be big for their, development as well, because that's going to get, speed up the process. So I love the pick there at 45. Makes a lot of sense. At 57, this is a trade to acquire the 57 pick from the Timberwolves. Not actually quite sure what you've given up, because, the report doesn't even say what they gave up to get this pick from the Timberwolves, but maybe you guys can let me know down in the comment section if you know. I'm sure a lot of you guys do, Raptors fans. You guys are always tapped in. You draft Ulrich Chomke, and I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm fumbling through this draft process. I apologize. It says here, Chomke is the youngest player eligible for the 2024 draft and barely even qualified because apparently, you know, he is from NBA Academy in Africa, and, you know, they have been developing some players there, which you love to see. It says, you know, there's a small sample size on his skill set, but, you know, he only played 3 games for Basketball Africa League qualifiers. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe you're taking a high upside shot on, you know, like a 57th pick. That's obviously what you want to do with the 57th pick. You don't want to be looking for guys that are middle of the road potential wise. You take a swing at 57. It, you know, could be even a shot in the dark, you know, and I think that is what you try to do there. And it looks like that's what the Raptors did. So the raw talent is there, though. If you look at his stats over the 3 games he played in the Basketball Africa League qualifiers, 13 points, 9 rebounds, 38% from 3, and 75% from the foul line. If you can shoot those numbers, anywhere near those numbers in like the G League next season, this is a guy that's going to be on the team in 2026. Two-way versatility for a center. I guess he's either a center or a power forward, and apparently he lacks a lot of polish. Obviously, if he's putting up those numbers and he's not drafted in the first round, and, you know, all the things I already read about him, then he's going to lack polish. That's probably why he's not going to get drafted super high in the first round. And apparently he's 18 years old and signed a 2-way contract with the Raptors for the 905 G League affiliate. And so, yeah, he's a center power forward, 6'11". You know, this is a high upside piece that I think, you know, hopefully develops into what his potential suggests. So that's the draft. I think overall you take a lot of shots on high upside guys, which is what Masai likes to do. A lot of these guys are athletes. A lot of these guys are competitors, and that fits in with the Toronto Raptors identity extremely well. And you got to love this draft from the Raptors. I'm going to give it a B+, maybe an A-. You know, Jakob Poeltl is a guy I really like coming out of the draft. And I think, you know, his competitive edge and his, you know, even if he's not the best athlete, listen, you know, you don't have to be the best athlete defensively to be a great defender. If you are going to give it everything you have, possession by possession, I think he's that type of guy. I think he's going to fight so hard to get in this rotation. And I just love the pick for him as a shooter. And, you know, the Raptors really need some shooters. So I like the draft for the Raptors. And, you know, just for the fact of giving high upside guys a chance, you know, later in the draft, that is the exact strategy I would employ if I was running a team, with whatever that's worth. You know, I'm never going to do that. I don't even watch college basketball. So whatever that's worth. But listen, I do believe that is the right strategy. Okay. So, you know, Raptors fans, let me know 905, how are we feeling about the draft? Okay. You guys got to tell me, because I always love hearing from the fan base how excited they are about their draft. So, you know, I want to hear everything from Raptors fans, all the feedback you guys can give. I am so excited for your team. You know, I really do love them. And actually, I was just looking into it. Ulrich Chomsky is a Cameroonian player. So, man, Cameroon has, you know, you guys know all about that with Pascal Siakam and his value to your team over there. He's one of the best players, you know, your franchise has had in a long time. Obviously, I'm sure Pascal, you know, it hurt when you got traded, but, you know, I can relate because the Cameroonian players in the league, you know, Joel Embiid is I'm a Sixers fan, so him being, you know, one of the best Cameroonians alongside Pascal Siakam, we kind of have a mutual, I guess, dynamic and relationship with Cameroonian basketball there. So, you know, having our 2 franchise players in the past be Cameroonian. So I think that's cool, fun little thing I wanted to share. But, you know, hopefully guys let me know down in the comments about the draft. Without further ado, this is my favorite part of the deep dives, folks. We're going to get into player by player, the entire 2024-2025 season Toronto Raptors deep dive for their roster. Let's get right into it, folks. So, you know, we're going to have to start with the franchise player who you gave a max extension to this offseason. That is your best player, former Rookie of the Year, Scottie Barnes. Let me be very clear when I say this. I actually don't think there is any ceiling to Scottie Barnes' potential. It is absolutely off the charts. Whatever the chart is, it's not on it. Okay, that's his potential. If you look at last season and how much he improved in like basically every aspect of the game. For one, he is an all-NBA caliber defender. I think that goes without saying. 2, he is one of the more versatile offensive players in the league. And, you know, his passing and playmaking is almost going to be second to none from that power forward position. His shooting is incredibly improved. Last season, shooting near league average, 34% on 5 attempts per game. Got to the line more than he ever has last season, 4 attempts per game. He is an excellent rebounder, 8 rebounds per game, all career highs, by the way, all this stuff. You know, as a defensive player, he is one of the more versatile defenders in the league. I would expect him to make multiple all-NBA defensive teams throughout his career. And at 20 points a game last season, unfortunately, he ended the season with an injury. All things considered, this is exactly what the growth you wanted to see out of Scottie Barnes after coming off of that Rookie of the Year season. I mean, he is a superstar player moving forward. Next season, he's going to be even better. I think he averages somewhere close to 20, 10, and like 7 assists on all NBA defense and, good efficiency while shooting the three pretty well. He's one of the lead playmakers on this team. Him and Immanuel Quickley, I think, will, do most of the playmaking. So this is your do-it-all workhorse, just absolute Swiss Army knife, okay? Like, he's just that great. His athleticism is off the charts. His size for all the things he can do is almost unprecedented. Like, it's insane how good Scottie Barnes is. And I just think, not a lot of people, when they're ranking like young players under 25, really talk about Scottie Barnes enough and how great he's going to be for your team moving forward. If you're a Toronto Raptors fan, only 23 years old, folks, 23. Best basketball's in front of him. And that's crazy because last year he played like, if that team won more games, an all NBA caliber player. So Scottie Barnes obviously has to be, the top priority for discussion with this team's deep dive in the roster. I just can't say enough good things about him. I'm so excited to watch him play next season. You put a lot of great pieces around him, and I just want to see this team really gel. Toronto's going to be so happy with this core, and I'm just excited to watch them as a NBA fan. One player we haven't talked about yet is RJ Barrett. The other guy you acquired in the Knicks trade, and honestly one of the main pieces. And RJ Barrett has been criticized throughout his career for being an inefficient scorer with the Knicks. I don't necessarily think that's the most fair representation of RJ Barrett. He's only 24 years old, and if you look at his efficiency last season with Toronto, in that after that trade, he played 32 games. It's off the charts, actually. This is the best basketball he's played alongside Immanuel Quickley. The two of them, best basketball they played in their careers was with Toronto during that 30 plus game stretch. And RJ Barrett last season for the Raptors in that 32 game stretch averaged 55% from the field, scoring 22 points per game, 39% from three on 4 attempts per game. That's crazy. He has to up his free throw percentage a little bit. I think that's a little bit of an outlier there. He's definitely a better free throw shooter than 63%. That'll change. Showed, the ability to play make a little bit better in that role that Coach Darko Rajakovic put him in. And I actually love Coach Darko. He is, one of my favorite newer coaches in the league, by the way. Perfect guy to coach this team. 6 rebounds. I mean, RJ Barrett is a, pretty great scorer, all things considered. And he shot the lights out for you last season. I would expect that to continue moving forward. Now he's in a situation where people believe in him. We got to talk about Immanuel Quickley fully. Okay, I want to give the full spin on Quickley. Listen, this is a star caliber player in the future. I know people are gonna say, "Oh, you're throwing that word around crazy." Listen, I'm not. Like, just watch him play last season with the Raptors. Look at his numbers, even if you don't want to take the time to watch him play, which you should. But 38 games with the Raptors last season. If we're gonna talk about the 3-point efficiency, almost 40% from three on 7.1 attempts per game. And let's be clear, these aren't catch and shoot threes. These aren't corner catch and shoots. This is 7 attempts per game. A lot of them coming off the dribble, a lot of them coming off of pick and rolls, a lot of them coming off of DHOs. Like, this is absolutely spectacular. This is elite shooting. Basically 40% if you're rounding up on 7 attempts per game that's just beautiful. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to say about it. He also took a big step up in the playmaking, 7 assists per game on 2 turnovers. That is excellent playmaking from your guard of the future with star potential. I'm gonna keep saying it. Listen, 42% from the field. He's never gonna average 50% from the field, 52% from the field. He's a small guard, but I think with the improvement of this roster, with guys like Scottie Barnes and RJ Barrett playing alongside him with a full season, the efficiency isn't going to be an issue from the field. Obviously you'd like to see it get around 45%, but if we look at other guards in the league like Damian Lillard and James Harden throughout their careers, they average similar to like 43, 42% a lot of times, and it doesn't seem to affect their team too much when they're providing so much playmaking and 3-point shooting. So he also got to the line 4 times a game. He's a good athlete, quick guy, Quick is his name, Quickley, but that is actually how he plays. He's a fast player, and 84% on 4 attempts from the line. I think that will improve his ability to draw contact, ability to get to the rim in transition, blow by defenders. Like, this is all the good stuff, and as well as defensively, he can be a A-tier caliber defender at his size. He's never gonna be a DPOY because he's 6'2" and 190, but that's not what you're gonna ask him to do. You're just gonna ask him to be a pest on the ball and get a lot of steals and getting passing lanes and stuff like that. He's totally capable of that. I mean, Quickley's going to be a great defender, and he's also, his upside as a playmaker, shooter, and lead guard of the future is immense. I just love this player so much. I can't wait to watch him and Scottie and RJ and these guys just hoop out next season. I'm so excited for the Raptors come up in the play-in tournament next season. One of another players we haven't talked about for this young core is Grady D, who you drafted last season, 13th overall. And this is one of my favorite players coming out of the draft last season. He is a shooter, and early in the season, he struggled to find a rhythm. He struggled to stay on the floor. Pretty common with shooting players coming out of the draft. He's also a 20-year-old, so maybe his body isn't quite there. Coming into the season, towards the end of the season, down the stretch, he really found his way. He really found a solid rotation spot. He found his rhythm, his stroke, and he actually ended up for the season shooting 37% on 4 attempts per game. And he can shoot movement wise. He can catch and shoot elite. Like, he's a big guy too. Like, if he gets those shots off at 6'6", 200 pounds, he could shoot over a lot of players. He's gonna be tough to close out on because he really got to stay on his hip if he's gonna shoot those threes, because when you release it so high at 6'6" at an elite rate and get it off quickly, you're gonna have to stay on that guy's hip. That it frees up guys like Scottie Barnes, Quickley, RJ Barrett to do their thing in the mid-range and get to the rim and stuff like that. He has to be alongside those guys to be able to space the floor, and I love his ceiling, and I love how, even though he started the season kind of lackluster, he actually turned it all around and became everything we thought he could be coming out of the draft. And I think he builds on that next season, and I actually think he puts together a consistent season and is going to probably be, other than maybe Immanuel Quickley, maybe your best shooter on this team. So look for elite shooting potential for Grady to improve and have put together another season like that at the 2 guard, 3 position, wherever you want to put him. You got some good front court players on this team, and most notably Kelly Olynyk. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the league at this point in his career. He played so great with Toronto last season, almost having like one of the best offensive seasons of his career. He's also, I guess, a pretty good post defender. He's just a reliable guy that you can count on every night to make good decisions with the basketball. He's a good passer for a big man, exceptional passer for a big man. He can knock down a 3 here and there. He's not going to be a great sniper from that power forward center position, but he is capable of that. He is a capable floor spacer there where he can knock down a catch and shoot, top of the key, wherever it is. And his offensive versatility, he is a very good finisher around the rim. He's a good mid-range shooter. Like, he has all these tools, but the playmaking is spectacular. I mean, this is a guy that you can put the ball in his hands in the post. He can find open players. I just think he's a great pairing with some of these younger guys. One of the better role players in the league from a front court player. I just love Kelly's game. Last season in the Raptors, after he got traded from Utah, ended up averaging played 28 games, started 19 of them, ended up averaging 55% from the field, 13 points a game, good offensive rebounder as well. 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.3 steals. If you round up, it's a block, but it's 0.6 blocks, 82% from the line on 3 attempts. Like, Kelly Olynyk's one of the best role players in the league, and I think he absolutely makes this team a ton better next season for a full season with these guys. Also, a Canadian player, by the way, alongside RJ Barrett. This is a lot of Canadians on this team. They're building a little bit of a Canadian core here. You love to see it for Toronto. I'm sure it hits a little different, Toronto fans, when you see a Canadian player, balling out on your team. That's, Kelly Olynyk, I think, is probably a good example of that. How hype it is when he puts on that jersey and represents your country. And you just gotta go crazy for that, right? I would imagine. Jakob Poeltl, another great veteran center. Maybe you could say Jakob Poeltl, people are gonna say, oh, well, they gave up way too much to get him. They traded that pick to the Spurs, ended up being a high pick in this draft. Listen, Jakob Poeltl's a above average center. He's a good center, good offensive rebounder, good rebounder in general, good finisher, really solid finisher. He's a great screen setter, good roll man. He's a fundamental big who, again, just provides a lot of stability, consistency to this team. I think he plays with an edge that I really like, and defensively I think he's pretty good down there in the post. Good shot blocker. This is a guy that I think is just a good quality starting center that you can rely on most of the time. Unfortunately, last season only played 50 games. Looks like he was injured there, but when he's healthy, he's pretty reliable. So this is a good quality starting center that I think if you were to put him and Kelly Olynyk at the center and kind of stagger their minutes throughout the game, maybe you can make a case you want Olynyk playing the 4. I kind of think he's a 5 at this point. I think rotating him and Kelly Olynyk is gonna be one of the biggest strengths of this team, as you always have a big, tough, strong interior presence that can be a little bit versatile on either end of the floor respectively, on offense for Kelly and on defense for Poeltl. This is just a great pairing, veteran big man pairing. You love to see it, folks. Another guy, Christian Koloko, played 58 games last season, ended up starting 19 games, and maybe you like this guy as the backup 5 and play Kelly at the 4. It's possible. I mean, Kelly can shoot, so if there is a matchup where the other team has a big 4, like I'm thinking of like the Warriors with Draymond Green, I think Kelly could cover Draymond Green pretty well. But if it's a matchup with like Detroit and he's got to cover a guy like Tobias Harris or Jason Tatum with the Celtics, I'm not sure I'd love those matchups for Kelly defensively. But Christian Koloko, nonetheless, second round pick 2022, ended up playing 58 games, started 19 for them. They like this kid's size. He's a true 7-footer, 230. I think defensively he's got a lot of upside, and I think it'll be interesting to see how Coach Rajakovic employs these center minutes. So that's kind of an interesting thing there for me. We talked about Davion Mitchell and his value to this team. Maybe there's a situation where he's competing with Jamal Shead for those backup point guard minutes where he comes in and hounds the ball handlers, right? We certainly think Immanuel Quickley is probably the starting point guard, right? Because he's listed as a shooting guard. He's kind of a shooting guard for the Knicks. He's a point guard for me with the Raptors. Ball handler, playmaker. He's a point guard. So that leaves guys like Davion Mitchell off the bench. I think he's going to come in again, provide solid ball hounding for the Raptors. They like that kind of stuff over there in Toronto. I think he's a good fit for that. Bruce Brown is an interesting piece here because they actually picked up his team option, which is an expensive one. I think the reason for Bruce Brown getting picked up on that $22 million team option is one, because maybe it's a trade piece for them. Bruce Brown is a exceptional role player in this league. About his role with the Denver Nuggets in that title run. Okay, he was one of their top players, one of the more versatile, kind of a Swiss Army knife in his own right at that small forward, undersized forward guard position, wherever you want to play him. But he just does so much good stuff for your team. He can defend a little bit. Okay, he can put the ball in the basket a little bit. He can handle the ball well. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes with the ball in his hands. He can play make. He can rebound. He is an effort guy. Like, he's just such a great role player and versatile utility kind of gadget guy you can throw in there to do a lot of great things for you. I think whatever the situation is, whether you're going to extend him after this season on maybe a little bit more of a team-friendly deal, or you could offer him as trade bait throughout the season, I think this is a good, exceptional quality role player either way you slice it. But I guess like picking up his team option, you don't want to lose Bruce Brown for nothing. So obviously, it's a good move for them. Chris Boucher is a player I like a lot. He is a guy that has been one of the longest tenured Toronto Raptors, might actually be the most now that I'm looking at it here, but I like Chris Boucher a ton. He is a backup forward, center, probably a backup power forward. He's a good shooter. He's a long defender. He is an effort guy. He's got good edge to him, good grit, good toughness, tough guy, and really spaces the floor well at that size. He's 6'9", 200, but he looks bigger because of his length, in my opinion. I think he's a good defender, and I think he's a switchable defender, and I think he provides a lot of Toronto edge to this team, right? Kind of fits that identity, and it appears him staying at Toronto, they really like this guy, and I do too. I think anytime I watch him play, he seems to play hard and seems to play tough, and can knock down a three here and there off those catch and shoots, and he's got a high release. So I like this player for the Raptors quite a bit. Chris Boucher, let me know down in the comment section how we're feeling about him. Garrett Temple, we talked about his role. It's probably as a veteran leader. Garrett Temple, I'm not sure if he's gonna get a ton of minutes next season. Maybe in a spot, in a pinch, you could put him on the floor there. I just like him having he's 38 years old. I just like him being on this team as good depth and good leadership there. Jordan Nwora is a great shooter. That's probably his best strength. And last season played 34 games with the Raptors. He was part of the Pascal Siakam deal, and previously with Indiana. He was with Milwaukee for a long time. He was actually on that 2021 Finals team as a rookie, and he was a sniper there. He hasn't really, I guess, found a consistent role in the league since coming over to the Pacers after 2023, really, and has yet to put together like a full season. Kind of just a fringe. Probably won't be in the rotation guy, but is a solid shooter. And if you need a shooter in a pinch, you're down a couple guys with injuries, whatever, he could definitely maybe see some playing time from the 2 or the 3. Talked about Jamal Shead. We talked about Jakob Poeltl. That's the guy we got to get through in this video, because Jakob Poeltl, like I said, he's gonna probably get a lot of the 2 guard minutes for this team. Probably your backup 2 guard. You got a few options there. You got Grady, you got RJ Barrett, who will probably be, they will definitely be big minute rotation guys. You have Jakob Poeltl at the 2, but I think Grady is probably more of a 3, and then RJ, he's probably a 3-2, but I think RJ is probably your starting 2 guard, or Grady, doesn't really matter. It's kind of positionless the way the Toronto Raptors like to do it, and then Jakob Poeltl will fill in off the bench, provide a ton of upside shooting wise, and he'll basically come in and be a pretty, hustle defender who can maybe manage the game a little bit with his on-ball capabilities and his shooting ability. So I just like him more, probably, I don't know if he'll play more off-ball or on-ball. Maybe you guys can let me know that down in the comment section, but him and Davion Mitchell pairing off the bench is going to be wild. They're going to be all over the basketball. Wow, that's probably what they're going to do. I just thought about that. That's crazy. That is a wild pairing. I think they're going to be so annoying to play against, for teams like my Sixers with Tyrese Maxey. So let me know if that's going to be the situation you think, because that is so exciting. If you're a Raptors fan, that's going to be nuts. He's also a good guy to put next to Davion Mitchell because of the shooting. I think that helps him a lot. So other than that, we talked about Mogbo. We talked about Shead, Walter, all these rookies. I think Chomsky will be in the G League next season, probably, with all these big time forwards. Ochai Agbaji, another wing that I like. He's a good defensive upside player, and he's a great athlete and a great, dunker and stuff like that. Agbaji had a great showing in his rookie season with the Utah Jazz. Found a lot of success there. Now this is his third season, and he was involved in the Kelly Olynyk trade. It's actually interesting to me because if you look at his production and his numbers, he's actually decreased a lot of it since his rookie season, but maybe that will change. If he can knock down a 35-36% three ball, man, he is a tough player to keep out of rotation because of his athleticism, his defensive upside, and his, all that stuff. Like he's going to be tough to keep out of rotation if he could shoot the three just a little bit more consistently. That's a player with a ton of upside that I think fits the Raptors well. Long athlete defender from the wing. That's their brand, right? But other than that, let me know down in the comment section if I missed anybody. That's kind of it for the deep dive for the roster and stuff like that. But my take on this team is they have improved immensely. Basically, you could look at last season as kind of an off season for them. They made it several trades where they built their core a little bit better, and now you have a young core of RJ Barrett, Immanuel Quickley, Scottie Barnes, and you get solid front court members. We talked about Kelly Olynyk, we talked about Jakob Poeltl. This is an excellent team, and they are only going to get so much better next season. And look out for Scottie Barnes to be not only one of the best players in the league in a couple years, but next season to be an all NBA caliber player. I'm telling you, if they win 41 games, he's going to make an all NBA team. Like, he's going to be that good. There's just not many players that I've ever seen that has versatile capabilities. Like, he hasn't even touched the surface of what he's capable of, in my opinion. And now he has so many, great players around him that I think, as the number one option, we're going to see a very, very different Scottie Barnes. Like, he is just going to be absolutely insane next season. Production wise, like, I'm telling you guys, 23 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 7 assists per game. Like, this is a triple double threat every time with all NBA defense. The efficiency's there. The shooting has gotten better. Like, it's over for the league. If you play against Scottie Barnes on both ends, he's just going to dominate the game probably next season. I do think his offensive shot creation is probably the biggest thing he could, from the perimeter specifically, is probably the next thing. If he can develop that at just a tiny bit more, doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be guys. I'm thinking about guys of his size, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown level. It doesn't have to be that great. It just has to be serviceable and something you can throw into the mix at times. Like when, defenders are sagging off, when defenders are, you're getting doubled and you just kind of have to pass in that situation. If he can do, add a little bit of off the dribble, a little bit more creativity, I think is going to elevate him to superstardom. And he did show that last season with improving the 3-point shot, but he's just a good enough player now with his improved shooting ability, with his elite playmaking, with his athleticism and ability to handle the ball and be a lead ball handler and decision maker for this team, that it really doesn't have to be a crazy bag. Like, it just has to be something where you can use it in a pinch. End of the shot clock kind of thing could really help this team close out games and stuff like that. But really, you're probably going to look for RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley to do a lot of that stuff anyway. I just love this core. I love this team, and I love what they're doing. Masai Ujiri's totally turned around. The narrative on him in 2019 was that he was a genius, and then it shifted to what are they doing, and now it's, for me, it's back to like Messiah, right? That's, kind of the thing. So hopefully, guys, Raptors fans, let me know down in the comment section what you think of my takes, what do you think of this video. I'm sure I got some things wrong. I'm a Sixers fan. I don't watch every Raptors game, okay? But I tried to do a lot of research for this video and, cover your team honestly and fairly, and I actually do love, I'm going to really enjoy watching your team on League Pass next season, because I just think the world of them, you know, and I love Coach Darko Rajakovic. I think he is a perfect fit for this team. His fiery competitiveness, and that's what I love about a coach. Coach Nurse has the same thing, and I gotta tell you, man, Raptors fans, you're gonna know everything about this. You know, I know Coach Nurse leaving and going to a rival, I guess, if you want to call us that. I don't really see it that way, but Coach Nurse leaving and going to the Sixers, a lot of people, I believe from the Raptors fan base, kind of had enough of Coach Nurse by the time he left. Listen, I gotta tell you though, he is my favorite coach the Sixers have ever had. He is the most awesome person and coach. I just love everything about Coach Nurse, and he's such a great coach. Like, his defensive strategizing is elite, and like, he is so into the games. Like, you see a lot of coaches, like, you know, they don't really get into it that much. They don't get fired up like Coach Nurse does, and I just love it. Coach Darko the same way, you know, he gets into it, and I just love coaches like that. And you know, Toronto, you got a passionate, gritty, no nonsense fan base, and I love that about you guys, because I can relate to that as a Sixers fan. So, you know, 905, please let me know where you are down in the comments, and let me know how I did on this video. I'm sure I got some things wrong, but I want to hear from you guys what those things are, because I do want to learn about your team. I want to learn about every team, so make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. I'm covering every team in a deep dive by the end of the offseason. So every day on this channel, there's gonna be a new deep dive just like this on a different team until we cover them all. We've already done 17 of them, so 13 more to go, folks. And you know, there's gonna be just as much effort in every single one. I'm really trying to do that for you guys. You know, I want to give every single fan base their respect, their flowers, and you know, cover their team with integrity and respect, and you know, treat them well, because that's how they've treated me. So I'm sure it'll be no different for Toronto fans. You know, you guys love your team, you love your basketball, and you know, I can appreciate that. I know we've had some playoff moments, but you know, honestly, I always love playing the Raptors, because I love playing fan bases that have like what the Sixers fan base has, which is that level of, you know, intensity and like just deep love for their teams. Like, I can always respect that, even if they're on the other side of me. We talked about it with the Knicks video last time. Like, it's the same thing there. So a ton of respect for you guys, you know, and you guys have a great future, and you know, I'm really excited to watch them develop. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. We upload content just like this every single day, you know, for, you know, as long as I can see forward in the future. That's what we're going to be doing, uploaded content with this level of effort every single day. We're also going to start streaming again on Twitch. It could be NBA 2K content. It could just be, you know, just chatting content where you guys talk to me in real time. I want to find more engaging ways to talk to you guys. I think Twitch is a good start, so make sure you guys follow my Twitch. We're going to be streaming over there starting soon again. Drop a like on the video, you know, leave a like. It really helps out the video. Leave a comment, Raptors fan or not, what do you think of the video, and subscribe. We're on the road to 13K, and you guys have, you know, tons of new subscribers. Thank you guys so much for watching the videos. I'm going to be doing a new deep dive tomorrow, and I will see you guys there. 905 Raptors fans, how we feeling? I love you guys. Thank you for showing up to the video. I know there's gonna be a lot of you showing up for your team like always, and I will catch you guys in the next one. This is your boy DeHave, and as always, peace.